So first of all, welcome to the Red Hat Summit. We're very honored to have you here. My name is Rob Young. I'm in product management with Red Hat. Don't hold that against me. Yaniv Kaul and I work on the Red Hat Virtualization product. I'm in product management. I work with Yaniv. He is Director of Engineering. And you'll tell early on that I'm from Tel Aviv and Yaniv is from Louisville, Kentucky, based on our accents. So, please take it easy on him if he talks with a drawl, a southern drawl. So, real quick, our agenda for today is real quick, real simple. We're going to talk about the modernization of your apps. If you were here for the keynote today, you saw some really cool stuff about how we're looking to the future. At Red Hat, we're skating to where the puck is going, not to where it is today. We'd love to fight with that piece of the ice, but we really believe the future is the future, and that's where we want to be with, ourselves and with our customers. With that in mind, we're going to talk about what's new with Red Hat Virtualization. That's 4.2. So at that point, I'll hand the presentation over to Yaniv, and then he'll hand it back to me. We're going to talk about what's next. So we'll gaze into that crystal ball that Paul kind of dusted off for you guys a little bit earlier this morning around some of the things we got around virtualization. And then this week at Summit, the things that we're doing as a team to kind of make you guys aware of what we're doing as part of this hybrid cloud infrastructure. So how many of you guys were at the keynote this morning? How cool was it that the very first product was Red Hat Virtualization announced? I mean, that should tell you a lot about the strategy that we have. So if you look at the three pillars of our business, we're really built on, providing an open hybrid cloud framework for application deployment. And that's really built around the infrastructure, the cloud-native application platforms, and management and automation. So under infrastructure, you're going to see things like RHEL and Rev and, OpenStack platform. In the middle tier, you're going to see OpenShift. Some of the developer tools, JBoss, our application server, and then around management and automation, this is where you're going to see Ansible and CloudForms and some of the other things that we've got coming in support of those things. So if you look at how our products fall into those categories, we've got a lot of products out there, but we solve a lot of problems with them. And when we look at our products, we don't see products. We see a portfolio. And our customers use our products as a portfolio because they work so well together. If you cut your teeth on Linux, like I did in the early 90s, you'll have a true appreciation for the ecosystem that was built around that and how Red Hat has built on top of that ecosystem to provide production-ready support, production-ready products in an integrated way so that you can deploy applications on this. This very rarely happens nicely in proprietary software. You get roped into an agreement with somebody you may or may not agree with. They're going to charge you a lot of money. You figure out if you can afford it or not, and then you move on and make your choices. With open source, it doesn't work that way. If you decide you want to do something on your own, you can. You want to use a free version of our product, you should. But if you want to use it in a very serious way and then have somebody you can call and help you with that, or figure out how to integrate it with other things you have in your toolbox, that's where your relationship with the Red Hat becomes important. So if you look at what Paul said this morning about the 4 footprints of deployment of applications, there's really 5. So you got the physical machines. This is what I grew up with back in the 90s. An application, one-to-one relationship with an application physical server. We've got a virtual suite as well that allows you to consolidate applications on a single server, so many applications, many operating systems can run on a single server. And then we get into what we're talking about today, and primarily at this event, private cloud. This is going to be the OpenStack things of the world. People have tried to build this type of technology on their own for many moons, many decades. Quite honestly, if you remember the mainframe days, that's what a private cloud started out as, a virtualized mainframe. But now that conversation is going, how do I stretch my applications not only across physical and virtual, but physical, virtual, hybrid, public, and private clouds? And the 5th leg that I put on here is storage, because this is another domain that we allow you to deploy your applications on and to manage, quite nicely. So drilling into Red Hat Virtualization, a lot of people say, well, how long has this product been around? I haven't heard much about it. You go to certain parts of the world, certain regions, they've been using Red Hat Enterprise Linux and Linux on physical machines for a long time, but they haven't heard of Rev. It's been around for 10 plus years at this point. We have released, I think we're going on our 10th or 11th release of the product. It has matured very nicely over time. So from version 3 to version 4.2 that we're going to announce this week. And what we have done is incrementally allowed you to deploy in a hybrid cloud environment, virtualized to optimize your investment in your current hardware so that you can have a pathway to more modern applications, more deployment options, portability so that you can move VMs, across different providers of VMs, so VMware to Rev or Azure to Rev. Notice I'm going to Rev every time, not the other way. But just know that when you hear Red Hat Virtualization, this is a very, very solid piece of software. It's been around a long time. We have many customers that use this on a daily basis to manage their businesses. So if you were at the keynote this morning, Paul said something you may not remember, but I'll repeat it. Most customers that we have operate in an environment where they have legacy applications, and he called it the old world, but I don't call it that because I came from that world, and I don't feel that old. But if you look at how most applications are deployed today, it's not an either or. And especially if I've got an application that has to go to a legacy Oracle database or SQL Server database or MySQL database in a virtualized environment that will never make its way into a container in a private cloud or public cloud environment, but I want to deploy applications built on containers so that I can rev them quickly, so that I can version them quickly and be agile, but they're still going to have requirements that exist in the old world, as Paul described it. So, our technology, starting with Rev, going into OpenStack and OpenShift, allows customers to have that hybrid experience and to deploy these applications and develop them, to meet the needs of their business. So this is really what our conversation is all about today. So if you look at the use cases for Red Hat Virtualization, a lot of people say, well, I just want to consolidate some applications on one server. Well, there's so many things you can do once you get that one basic concept, kind of mastered. And, if you look in performance for SAP, for Oracle, for other heavy-duty applications, Rev is perfect. The benchmarks between virtualized Oracle or virtualized SAP or you name it application and bare metal is very, very close. Dev and test environments, a development team can stand up and burn down VMs very quickly. The hybrid and multi-hypervisor Rev supports a multitude of VMware, Hyper-V, and KVM. So if you have heterogeneous environments, which most do, Rev is a very good tool for that. Technical workstations, so if you're into 3D or CAD deployments and you don't want to deploy all the software on a single desktop, you can use our technology to actually take advantage of single licensing to get the same experience on a desktop. And then server consolidation is really the primary use case, but all of these things kind of filter down into that. So if you look at some of the customers we have out there, we have many, many more, but there's some logos up here. So if you're wondering, is Rev right for me? We believe it is because it's right for these guys. And many of these customers and some that aren't on here use Rev in a very big way. And we're not talking 10 VMs or 100 VMs, 1,000 VMs is very, common. And if you look at one of our use cases, we're actually migrating. We've got a reference customer called Intermountain Health. They've got 1,700 VMware VMs being managed that they're migrating over to Rev right now. So it's a pretty interesting use case. So if you look at what our customers are doing and what they plan to do with Red Hat Virtualization, many of them are just maintaining an environment. So this is the old school way of doing things. But if you look at the other 30%, they're either growing or transforming. And Paul used the term, and you'll hear it over and over, it's probably overused, digital transformation. And this is really, the demographic here. If you looked at this before, 90% would be saying, I just want to get by and I'm running. But now as the landscape is changing, the market is changing, the way developers are deploying applications and the way businesses are demanding that they be delivered, they need to modernize their applications. And this doesn't mean leaving, legacy behind. This means pulling it along into the modern world along with the things that we're doing at Red Hat. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Yaniv. Again, he's from Kentucky, so take his accent, be nice.
Thank you. So Rev 4.2, new release to be announced here and to be released next week, available. So the main theme of 4.2 is really about helping the administrator to get the job done. It's really about making sure that ease of use and the ability to get the common tasks be accomplished faster, easier to do, allows the administrator to have more free available resources and time to do the more interesting and challenging tasks on top of the infrastructure as a service product, on top of Rev. So let's see how it looks like, and we will discuss some of the features that we have in 4.2 that allow us to do this. I'll give overview of some of the new features and some of the features that we've enhanced in 4.2. For those of you who are not familiar with Rev 4 at all and are still in earlier releases, some of it may be very, very new. So I'm not going to go through the numbers, but we have made quite a bit of effort about stability. So Rev has always been the focus about stability, and we've been releasing batch updates on a regular cadence for both 4.1 and as well as 3.6 releases. I think in 4.2 we've made an additional step in the direction of more stabilization of the product by making sure that many of the flows are easier to use, are more straightforward, and can be seen, events, canceling the task if needed, and progress report, and so on. New user interface. Enhancing our UI to use the Patternfly library that is used by the rest of Red Hat products was not meant to just make it smooth. It was meant to give us consistency. Now, consistency is a great value when you understand that it takes less time to be familiar with the user interface. It is more common. You need less training. And then I had just had someone who was, oh, it looks just like CloudForms. Yes, that's on purpose. It does look like CloudForms because it is supposed to be familiar. And the similar concept here allow you to, again, be more productive faster. This is once you log into the 4.2 administration portal, this is what the first page that you will see. So first of all, you can notice if you are familiar with Rev, that the left navigation tree is gone. We have replaced it with the common vertical navigation bar that's collapsible, and that's common to Red Hat products. You will also see the dashboard. The dashboard is not new. It's from 4.0, but we have improved the overall performance of the product, and as such, the dashboard loads even faster than it used to. I use it all the time as a navigation tool, actually, because from anywhere I am in the user interface, I can just click on the dashboard, and from there I can quickly go to the virtual machine or the host or the storage domains tab, which I usually use. By the way, all the screenshots that you will see are taken from our production instance that we have internally. It's quite a large production instance that we have, separated into 3 regions, one in the US, one in Europe, and one in the Middle East. It's been running 4.2 for quite a while now. We have great feedback from our IT department on this instance. Once you click on, for example, on any of the storage buys, you will see this report. So first of all, you can see that the report gives you a very accurate and meaningful data that you need to understand where is my bottleneck here in terms of storage. But second of all, you'll notice, and we'll get back to it in a second, that the objects on the left are blue. There are hyperlinks, and we can actually go to those objects, either storage domains or virtual machines. We'll get back to it, and I'll show you another example of this in a second. This is an example of a new feature that I think many of you will like. Now you can do, wherever you are in the UI and you have a search or a tab that you're in, you can save it as a bookmark in your browser. In this example, I've created a search that looks for all VMs that are in state up and belong to a specific subnet, 10, 15, whatever. What I can do right now is just save this URL as a bookmark in my browser. Now, since that Rev instance specifically is configured with Kerberos, and since we at Red Hat use single sign-on Kerberos, I can actually open my browser, right away go to this bookmark, and I'm right into the application with my credentials and with the search displayed. I think it's really cool and, again, very helpful, and I have a list of my common pages that I go to on a regular basis that I can just go to very, very quickly. Again, efficiency. What you can also see is that many of the objects that we see on the screen are hyperlinks. The virtual machines themselves, the host, the clusters, and the data center. Let's see how it works. At the top screenshot, you can see a host, and I'm looking at the VM tab of that host. I can see a list of the virtual machines that are currently running on that host. I've chosen to sort that list according to the CPU, and I'm seeing that the first one is consuming the highest number of CPU cycles right now on that host. I want to understand more about that virtual machine. All I have to do is click on it, and as you can see, I clicked, and on the bottom screenshots, we can see the details of that virtual machine. We can edit this virtual machine, we can reboot, shut it down, open a console to it, or maybe migrate it to another host. So the ability to go directly and perform an action on an object that you are looking at here makes, again, navigation through the UI much more quicker. To be honest, we didn't have disaster recovery for many years in Rev, and I know we have customers who have implemented disaster recovery by themselves using various technology and procedures and whatnot. So I'm thrilled to say that finally in 4.2 we have a disaster recovery solution. It's very, very simple to operate. It uses a replicated storage. All you have to do really is beforehand, you create a mapping between your primary and your secondary site. Storage domain to storage domain, cluster to cluster, network A to network A, whatever in the secondary site. Once you want to failover, all you have to do is use the same Ansible playbook with the failover command. That's all there is to it. Once you want to fail back, same Ansible script with the failback command. That's all there is to it. The heart of the technology is that within the storage, next to the VM disk themselves, we save the virtual machine metadata. But it's not just the correlation between the disk and the VM, but it's all the metadata that the VM have. The network configuration, the users that are assigned to that VM, where that VM resides, on which cluster, and so on. So all the metadata that's required to fully recover that VM to an operational state is there on the storage. So once the storage is replicated, you have all that you need really to do it. So I know it's a feature that many, many customers were looking for, and I'm very happy to see it in 4.2. Most of our customers are very happy with the layer 2 network connectivity and features that we have in Rev. But some have different requirements for microsegregation, for application level isolation between virtual machines. For that, we have implemented and developed an SDN solution that is based on OVN, which is part of Open vSwitch, and is actually using, we've developed a daemon we called, nicknamed Newt, because it is using the Neutron API. So we can actually use either CloudForm network provider, or the Neutron client, or the Ansible network modules to define and edit and control the whole overlay network that you can create with this technology. That's another integration that I really like. It's a very sophisticated integration, and I don't want to steal their thunder. There is actually a presentation about this very integration, and you can see it in the Cisco demo booth. It's integration on all layers, logical and physical integration of the networking with Cisco. But one small feature that we've implemented, and I want to highlight, is LLDP, Link Layer Discovery Protocol, that we've implemented. So now you can see when an interface is connected, to which switch it's connected, which VLAN is connected, which port it is connected to, so you can rest assured that you're actually defining the right, VLAN 400. It's actually connected to a switch and a port that's defined with VLAN 400. Again, making the administrative work more efficient and correct. What's the Red Hat OpenShift logo doing there? Well, we've implemented our new metrics and logging solution on top of the OpenShift common logging platform. We are using their components to actually give you the whole metrics and logging solution that we have today. It is using the EFK stack, Elasticsearch, Fluentd, Kibana. What it does is using collectd and using VDSM, we collect from the host and from the manager itself a lot of the metrics as well as the log. We use Fluentd to ship those information to Elasticsearch, which correlates it, indexes it, and then analyzes all of it. And Kibana is used to display it. Let's see how it looks like. This is, again, an example from my setup that we use. You can see that you can get multiple widgets here, all customizable. The dashboard itself is, of course, customizable. You can get current data, and you can get trend data. You can get it on the host, the virtual machine, the storage domain, the users. So essentially, all objects that we have today collecting metrics on and have logs, and we can analyze those logs, you can get information on. I think it's a great enhancement to our existing metrics that we have today in the system. It can be extended, and of course, you can drill down almost to any object that you need for more granular information about, for example, virtual machine. Most of the workloads do not require high performance, do not require every bit of performance. They're fine with the regular settings, out-of-the-box settings. But there are some workloads. For example, we just mentioned earlier SAP or Oracle database, in-memory database, latency-sensitive application that requires really to squeeze every bit of performance. In the past, it would have been a bit of a challenge, a lot, if I remember correctly, like 22 different items of configuration to really squeeze every bit of performance. We've introduced a new VM type. Alongside the desktop and the server, we now have a high-performance VM type. It takes away about half of the configuration options that are needed to configure a high-performance virtual machine. You still need to give it some of the data. For example, how much memory it needs, how many vCPUs, the NUMA topology, the vNUMA topology, and so on. But the rest, we take care. It's really making the configuration of a high-performance VM much, much easier than it used to be. There are multiple advancements that we've made in the area of uploading either a disk or a VM. First of all, we can not only upload or download a disk, we can now upload and download individual snapshots, which is great for backup purposes. We are now being able to upload and download faster than we've had before. Depending on your network connection, storage, and so on, you can get to hundreds of megabytes per second upload and download performance, which is great for migration, for backup purposes, and other, by going not only as a proxy to the engine, to the manager, but directly to one of the hosts. We will support sparse, so if you have holes in your images, they will not only pass zeros along the line, but actually efficiently pass along just, okay, that's sparse, continue from the next data block. Last but not least, we do not need anymore the ISO data domain on NFS. I know that there were tens of people that we've been waiting for it for a long, long time. We don't need it anymore. Yes, I knew it would come. When practicing, I thought, okay, I knew someone will clap. And this is how it looks like from the user interface, for example. So it's not a new dialogue. So people in version 4 know that you can upload disk images via the user interface. But now you can upload ISO images. And you can select a storage domain. In my case, I selected an iSCSI block storage domain. And I'm uploading the ISO directly to the data domain. I don't need any NFS, ISO domain, specific ISO domain. And you can see at the bottom, for example, there's a progress report. You can cancel it. And of course, using ISO from a high-performance block storage domain is even faster than using it just from any NFS that someone just set up because they needed an ISO. So I think that's a very nice addition that many people will be happy with. We have some customers that are running CEPH. Many of them are running CEPH because they run OpenStack. Some of them are running CEPH standalone. But I don't know how many of you know that CEPH has had for a while an iSCSI gateway. We have certified, tested, and certified the iSCSI gateway as a regular data domain, block data domain in RHEL, and you can use it now alongside, which gives you a consistent storage across your RHEL and OpenStack or RHEL and standalone CEPH environments. We always support the latest RHEL. That's not new. In 4.1.10, we have released support for RHEL 7.5, for example, which was just recently announced. But in 4.2, we are taking advantage of the new features in RHEL 7.5. I want to focus on one feature, but again, don't want to steal anyone's thunder, and there is a presentation about it specifically, but video. Video allows you on a file-based storage, and specifically with RHEL, with Gluster, to use both dedupe and compression. And depending on your workload data, that could save you a lot of space. Again, I'm not going to go into the details. There's a specific presentation where I encourage you to go. I've seen the draft, and I know it's going to be cool. It's amazing technology, in my opinion. We've replaced the old user portal with a new VM portal. The new VM portal is now a bit easier to use. It's faster. It's more scalable. For example, there are administrators who have assigned tens or even more virtual machines. In the past, it used to be a bit slow to navigate. Now it's easier to navigate. Let's see how it looks like. Here's mine, for example. I have several virtual machines assigned, and you can see that I can do the basic actions here to edit it, simple editing of changing the memory and CPU, to run it and stop it, and to open a console, for example. So again, very easy to use. We've worked with NVIDIA to get into RHEL the ability to slice a GPU into multiple partitions and actually assign them to a virtual machine. This is very useful in several scenarios. For example, GPU, general purpose GPU processing, in AI or artificial intelligence or machine learning scenarios. So now we are able to actually give you that, or in 3D rendering, for example, with third-party remoting. Now you can actually use that and partition and assign virtual machines a vGPU. I've mentioned, I think, like tens of times the improved ease of use. I'll give you another specific example, and that's deployment. So deployment of hosted engine, the ability for the manager to be hosted as a virtual machine on the infrastructure itself, has not been easy in the past. We've taken, I would say, dramatic measures and really improved the flow. We took off all the non-critical questions that are asked in the installer. We converted the installer to Ansible, not just because we like Ansible, but it's much more cleaner and ability to handle the issues and the rollback if anything goes wrong. This is how it looks like. We're only asking the critical questions. We moved anything that could be moved away or to the advanced section or to past installation. And now we get the installation very, very smoothly. And we already, when you open up the manager after the installation, you already have everything installed and correctly and set up, and the host is up, and you can straight away start working. In the past, you needed to do some extra steps to make it happen. Of course, there wasn't a nice cockpit buttonfly-based user interface and wizard to get it up and running. Now it's much easier. So I assume, and we have great feedback on that, that many users will find it much easier to deploy hosted engine. I've listed an endless list of the Ansible modules that we have. Essentially, we have an Ansible module for each object in the system. If you don't know Ansible, I urge you, wait until I finish, but run away and learn Ansible. It's I can't even explain how simple it is, how powerful it is. It really changed, I think, the way that IT are going to work and are working today. What's nice about this is that not only we have modules for all the objects, but we have fact modules for all the objects, so we can query about them and take additional action. But we haven't stopped there, but we've also created roles that actually take those modules and take advantage of them and give you a complete flow that you can actually apply very, very easily. Now, it's all in Ansible engine, which is part of RHEL 7 already. Let me give you two examples of how easy it is. And I'll take two examples of roles that we've developed and are shipping as part of RHEL 4.2. So this is the first example, how easy it is from using the overt image template role to create a template from a queue code that's somewhere up there. All you have to do really is that there's the credentials section, which in production you will encrypt and put in the Ansible Vault. But the rest is just the template parameters. I highlighted the URL from which you download, but that's it. And it just Retrieve the URL, that creates a disk, create a VM from it, and convert the VM to a template. Done. Few lines, as you can see. Hardly any code. It's all about parameters. No coding necessary, really. Let's take a look at a more complex example. This one sets up an application, like a web server, two web servers essentially, you know, somehow load balancing, and a database as a backend. How does that work? I'm defining two profiles, one for the HTTP VM and one for the database VM. I've decided that the database should be a highly available VM. Again, another property, that's about it. Now I'm defining the anti-affinity or negative affinity between the web servers because I want them to run on different servers in case something bad happens. And then I just define the VMs. I'm using the same template that I've used in the previous role as a basic for this. Now, I would imagine that in real life in production, I would continue now into the VM themselves with Ansible and deploy the web server and the Postgres. Again, very simple, no code whatsoever needed. You know, few lines essentially, mostly copy-paste. You know, it's part of the examples, to be honest. I think it's really a game changer. Last but not least, I want to give you an example for an internal deployment that we have for RHEL. So this is an internal deployment we call Upshift. It is used internally by our own product and technologies department to host a lot of the Red Hat infrastructure. Essentially, it's a hyper-converged RHEL running on Gluster that has both satellite that is used via CloudForms, via Ansible, to deploy the rest of virtual machine. Satellite is used, of course, as a source to deploy all the virtual machines. We have the OpenStack control node, because the rest of this setup that you cannot see is actually OpenStack, running on RHEL. And we have, in addition, OpenShift that's running on OpenStack, but the masters and the etcd are actually running on RHEL. And since we needed very high performance disk for those etcd, we actually gave them a pass-through to NVMe disks that are running on RHEL hypervisor. They've estimated they would need 14 servers if they didn't have this server consolidation that they've done, and they do it all with 3 servers. So I think it's a really great example of the integration of the ecosystem of all the projects that we have, a real portfolio where RHEL is the IaaS for all of this work. Back to you, Rob.
Okay, so I think you guys all understand that the problem that RHEL solves isn't going away. There was a lot of talk about the future and where we're going with virtualization. All that stuff is great and cool and all that, but today and tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, the day after that, the problem that RHEL solves is not going away. The data center as we know it, new technologies are going to enable us to do some really, really cool things, but all the stuff we're talking about here, this is really the stuff that's going to evolve to make sure that your data centers can evolve along with that technology, not to replace it. It's not an either-or thing. So what's next? This is what you all came to see, right? We put it toward it's like putting the milk in the back of the grocery store, right? So coming soon to a sales rep near you or to the Red Hat website, we've got this new product, and it's basically a SKU grouping of Red Hat Virtualization and CloudForms. And basically, we see this as a no-brainer because, we're telling people if you want to run RHEL in a big way, you need a big way to manage it. You can do that on your own. You can do it with third-party tools, whatever, but why not use something from Red Hat that will allow you to support OpenStack as well and other deployments, other artifacts that you already own from Red Hat. So what we've done is bundled this together, and actually a guy on my team sitting right back there, Moran Goldboim, kind of spearheaded that for our company. And this is, truly a great bundle. It's priced to where it makes sense to buy the products together as a suite. But we also see this as a really good answer to people that are looking for an alternative to vSphere and VMware. If you're dissatisfied or whatever with, vSphere or VMware, and you're wondering if Red Hat has a soft landing spot that is, cost sensitive, here you go. If you got any questions, you can ask, anybody in the Red Hat booth about this. But, I wanted to show you this, not because I want to poke at Red Hat or at VMware, but I really do. So if you look at the things we're talking about here, ease of use, simplicity, the less things I have to manage that are complex, the better off I am. So if you look at the side-by-side comparison of Red Hat, Rev, plus CloudForms and Ansible, you're really talking about 3 moving parts. And this is really the simplicity that we want to bring to the market, because we know life is complex enough. I have teenagers, believe me, I know. But if you look at VMware, not only do you have to have 5 different conversations with probably 5 different salespeople or whatever, essays, but you also have to figure out some way to manage this. And if I'm managing VMs, I don't want to manage the tools. I want that to be as simple as possible. So this side-by-side comparison. The other thing here is we are truly heterogeneous in the hypervisors that we support. So if you look at OpenStack and Red Hat Virtualization and KVM and Hyper-V and AWS and Azure and VMware, we support all those things. Ask VMware what they support. I won't go down the list, but ask them how long that list is. So what's beyond 4.2? I wanted you guys to leave here knowing that this is a strategic product, part of our portfolio, and not only from running your use cases, but from running our own infrastructure use case. So Yaniv had mentioned OpenStack on Red Hat Virtualization and OpenShift on Red Hat Virtualization. These things work today. We have reference architectures that you can deploy, you can manage, you can work with us to run our own products on our own products. And my line is Red Hat runs best on Red Hat. So you guys have to determine that on your own. But if you look at our roadmap, we've got 2 gaps that we need to completely fill. We've filled them incrementally around storage and DR, so center integration and incremental backup. So if you guys are interested in incremental backup, multi-arch support, so Power, Z Systems, ARM are on our roadmap. So you can look for our product to be deployable on these platforms. Portfolio enablement, I mentioned the deploying OpenStack on Rev as an example. This should be firmed up. I've got it on the roadmap because it's dependent on OSP 13 coming out in the middle of this year. So, it's still kind of on our roadmap at this point. And then the last bullet is really in support of what Paul was talking about this morning, container native virtualization. And this is the really cool thing, because we recognize the use case that we're solving, the problem we're solving today is, still big. There's a lot of VMs out there and a lot of management that needs to happen. But we're also looking to the future. So if you look at what Rev does today for the local data center, the container native virtualization, those same requirements have to happen there. You have to be able to spin up a VM or suspend a VM or add storage to a VM or set up the networking, set up the security, all of those things. CNV as it exists today is, usable, but we are looking at making it production ready so that if you are interested in traditional use cases with Rev, great. If you're interested in container-based use cases for agile development, hybrid cloud deployments, public and private, and portability, we've got that in mind as well. So this is what we're working on. And if you've heard of the KubeVirt project, Matt Hicks just gave a presentation, and the KubeVirt logo was right there on the slide. So no pressure on our team, but that is the basis of what we'll be building on. We'll be contributing our presence to the Kubernetes community, just like we have for Linux, just like we have for every other product we have. We're in with both feet. We don't do things halfway. So just real quick, CNV, you heard about it today, but this is basically, our unified platform for allowing developers to develop container-based applications and to pull in their traditional virtualized use cases, convert them to containers if they want, but not necessarily. They don't have to. It's our commitment to Kubernetes. Everybody should know by now that Red Hat is the #1 open source company in the world. We're an enterprise database or enterprise software company, but our development model is open source. And Kubernetes is a perfect community for us to operate in. And then finally, this gives us application deployment and management and all of the things that go along with that across those 4 and 5 footprints that I mentioned earlier: physical, virtual, public and private clouds and storage. And we can do it via containers or traditional workloads, which is really cool. There's no other company on the face of the earth that can do this. Red Hat's first. So if you look at how we're going to get there, our partners and ecosystem around Red Hat Virtualization, a year and a half ago this was basically non-existent, and our team has worked very hard to build out this project and this ecosystem. So if you look at the things that are new on here, we just announced SAP HANA on RHEL certification. So if you want to run SAP HANA on RHEL, you can. We've got this new Cisco ACI integration. But the other things of note we're adding to our ecosystem, we just added Trilio and Bacula systems for disaster recovery. You should talk to those guys if you're interested in what they do. They're here this week. And also Maxta. So if you're interested in HCI, if you're interested in what Nutanix has got going on, go over and talk to the Maxta guy. They may be able to give you a pretty good alternative at about 1/3 of the cost. So it's something you might want to explore. And then the Red Hat Connect Partner Program, welcome, it's welcome to all. We're an open company. We'd love to work with anybody and everybody. So if you want to learn more about anything that I've talked about or Yaniv talked about today, stop by the Red Hat booth. IT optimization, you'll find demos, you'll find smart people who love to talk. You'll find smart people who don't like to talk. But this is a great resource. It's open, it's a great resource. There's a lot of smart people there. You might walk away with some nice swag as well. So with that, I think I ended right on time, but we have time for some questions. If we don't, if you want to ask a question, we've got a little swag for you. You'll be the envy of your friends and family. So if you got a question, even if it's where'd you get that crummy blue sport coat, it would be great to talk to you. So we'll be up here outside the door. Thanks for attending. It's been great.